There was some tragic news over the weekend. Actor Michael K. Williams, who's best known for his roles in Boardwalk Empire and The Wire, was tragically found dead in his Brooklyn apartment over the weekend. He was discovered by his nephew, and it's being reported as an apparent drug overdose, although there hasn't been a toxicology report yet. We should get that report in a few weeks. But TMZ reported that our law enforcement sources say NYPD detectives are conducting an investigation into the origin of the narcotics cops found at the site of the actor's death over the weekend, which we're told are believed to be heroin-based. Now, Williams was very open about his struggles with addiction and how it was a struggle for him every single day. In fact, during a interview for a lengthy profile that the New York Times had written about him back in 2017, he said, quote, "Addiction doesn't go away. It's an everyday struggle for me, but I'm fighting." And it's such a tragic story, not only because it impacted his life and possibly his death, but drug overdoses are still very much a huge problem and epidemic in this country. It didn't just go away when the pandemic struck. In fact, the number of drug overdoses in 2020 shot up compared to 2019, and it feels like everyone's just kind of forgotten that we're dealing with an opioid epidemic, and these deaths of despair are still taking place. So, Cenk, I wanted to get your thoughts on Michael Williams and just how awful the story is.
Yeah, so we did all these interviews back in the radio days that are now pretty much lost to history. But and there's a lot I'm really proud of. Gore Vidal interview, Howard Zinn, a lot of these interviews. Luckily, we got to do. Before they passed away, and it's been 20 years that we've been on the air. But one of the proudest I have is actually with Michael K. Williams, and it was a wild, super interesting interview. And he mainly wanted to come up as a dancer. He'd gotten obviously attacked, and a blade had cut his face. We have some details of that now, but I wish we could share that interview with you guys for him to tell the story in his own voice. And it was an amazing story, but he made the best of it, and he turned it into something that he could build off of in his acting career. And I think it was P. Diddy who actually got him into acting in a rap video, because he was a dancer and wanted to dance in the videos, and then he got into acting through the videos. And he's a really well-trained dancer as well. So his life story is an amazing one. The addiction issue obviously has racked this country. I mean,
right.
It's been a problem for how many decades now? And of course, the latest surge is because of the Oxy, and that's still a scourge upon the land. And it's something he struggled with all the time. If you have friends and family that's in addiction, that's got addiction issues, it's the hardest thing in the world because it takes over their mind. And to be able to fight through that every day and just show up and exist is a struggle. And unfortunately, he lost that struggle today, but he was a great person. And by the way, also helped with a lot of progressive causes. People might not know that, but African-American causes, progressive causes, a really wonderful guy.
Yeah, that 2017 profile on him is a good read, just to get to know his life and the struggles that he's gone through. And he again was very open about his addiction to drugs. They write that he developed a drug problem of his own, and by 19 he was cycling in and out of clinics. To finance his addiction, he tried his hand at carjacking and credit card fraud, though the schemes left him with little more than a thickening arrest record. And look, I share that because look at what he turned into, like an incredibly talented person. Cenk mentions his work on progressive causes, but he was my favorite character and favorite actor in Boardwalk Empire. He was just fantastic, right?
Chalky White.
Chalky White, exactly.
Co-starred with Kevin McCarthy, Mickey Doyle. Hey, I tell you what, okay? I don't like what you're doing there, Chalky. That's how Kevin McCarthy talks too. Anyway, but he was, of course, as Omar in The Wire, he was a legend, an absolute. Honestly, that's why we asked for the interview, because I was like, we get a chance to interview Omar. It's like the greatest thing.
So they continue to write in that piece. One night, this is about the scar on his face. One night at a bar in Queens on the eve of his 25th birthday, he stepped outside to find a group of men jumping his friend. He tried to intervene. One of the muggers pulled out a razor blade and sliced him across his face and neck. One gash went straight through his jugular. The next day, his mother took out a second insurance policy on his life. He told the Times at the time, "She told me I'll never live to 30. And I believed her." Now, tragically, he died at the age of 54, way too young. And it's, again, an incredibly tragic story. And I want to just go back to the reality that so many Americans face with their own addictions. Because if you look at the numbers, they did go up in terms of drug overdoses in 2020. Data from the CDC show that there were 90,237 drug overdose deaths in the 12 months ending in September 2020, a leading indicator that implies a substantial increase over 2019's total of 70,630. 70% of drug overdose deaths are opioid related, according to the most recent CDC figures. And remember, heroin addiction that increased as a result of opioid addictions. And then when the federal government made it more difficult to get opioids, that's when people turned to harder drugs like heroin and fentanyl. So again, this is very much a real struggle and a real problem in the country that I think has just been kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, so last thing is to just double down on what Anna said earlier about addiction problems. Look, when I was a kid, they kind of the media painted it as evil people do drugs. And look, now that we're grown-ups, let's put childish things aside. It's an absurd thing to think. And it was easier to think and the awful stereotypes the media put out there when they thought it mainly affected minorities. Now, because of Oxy, it affects everyone. And all of a sudden, a lot of people have woken up and said, oh, it turns out it's a health issue and these people aren't actually evil. To which I say, of course. But also, guys, don't give up on people. So it was easy for everybody to give up on Michael K. Williams when he had the problems in the beginning, and he could have spent a long time in jail and maybe stayed there. Instead, he got a second chance and he made something brilliant out of it. So for as long as he was with us, he was in a lot of ways, literally a shining star. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.